JB here, JB here. Hope everyone's doing outstanding. Friday, April 4th, 3:18. Got 42 minutes to the close. Talk quick about the market, some names I'm looking at, go from there. Obviously, a rough week. One of I guess, the worst weeks in over 5 years, or close to 5 years. I guess the last week that we had this bad was back sometime during COVID in 2020. I don't know what week that was. S&P is on pace for over an 8% plus weekly decline. Same with the NASDAQ. The SPY was at 570 on Wednesday afternoon after hours. So you do the math on that, 70, we're down here at 508. I mean, 62 divided by 5. I mean, you can spin it any way you want. Just today, just follow through. So we had that news with China doing the 34% tariffs on the U.S. That kind of added fuel to the fire on the sell-off in the pre-market, and we were all the way down to 515 in the pre-market, bounced, and then we were turning around and looked like, hey, maybe we'll find some footing, and it just didn't really happen. Let's see where I have my stuff. Why don't I have this over here? Sorry, folks. And then we had, reports that the U.S. that POTUS talked to Vietnam, right? Like 11 o'clock, SPY went all the way up to 522. Vietnam talking about working things out so that it could be 0% tariffs. So we'll have to see how this all plays out. I keep saying, like, there's got to be more talk, right? Because if there's no more talk and we just go through this over the next couple of days, things are just going to get worse. And then today you had Fed Chair Powell speaking. Was it 1:30? And he pretty much stayed the course on what he said at the last Fed meeting, pretty much saying we have the tools at our disposal. We're going to stay the course. We're going to be patient. We're going to wait for the data to come in. And then he did voice concern that the tariffs that are being enacted are higher than expectations, which possibly could cause inflation and things like that. So he did say those things, but I don't know if folks were expecting him to say something in regards to being somewhat dovish, maybe spinning a little bit on the rate cut side. You had POTUS on his Truth Social site saying he wants Chip Powell to cut rates. Yeah. So here we are. I posted some charts, and this morning on the watch list I posted the COVID move. Right, I think it was 310 to 210 down on the SPY. So percentage wise, we're still not there yet. 490, I think, gets the bear market on the S&P. So we're still not there yet on the SPY. Although we still have 40 minutes left in the day. We're at 509 here. But an interesting chart here, and I always talk about supports, resistance, and just people have stops and limits in and whatever. But do I have it here? I mean, just how remarkable is this? 242 days ago was the last time the SPY hit 504. I think it was 504.48, and the low today that we just can't hit and bounce was 505.52. Just remarkable. So I don't know if that's of any importance. It's not going to have of any importance if we reverse here today and close underneath that, but certainly interesting. Always trying to find some lines that some guidelines, right? Areas maybe we can find some support, some bounces. Otherwise, this bleed's just going to continue until we get clarity and certainty, which we don't have, or stocks look insanely undervalued. I mean, you take a look. It's very hard to wrap your head around all the ramifications. I mean, similar. I make the analogy with COVID because it was the same thing. All these businesses were closed, so people don't have jobs. People don't have jobs. People don't spend. People don't spend. Apple doesn't do orders. Apple doesn't do orders. They cut jobs. It's a whole circle. We have the same thing here now with the tariffs. I mean, is this going to cause supplies to go delayed? People cut back on delays. People then they cut down a job. It's a whole, it's a full circle thing. And then it's the other side with the tariffs, right? I mean, in all essence, tariffs is a tax. So all this money, let's say, they're saying costs can go up 10% for the consumer. So the consumer's getting taxed, I guess, 10% more. So it's like, just raise sales tax. There's other, and I get some of the agendas to try and bring manufacturing jobs to the U.S., but the manufacturing environment's so different than it was back in 1950 and 60, right? It's a lot of we're a service economy now, and a lot of the trade and services and the goods that are transacted from different countries, a lot of it's service related, and the U.S. is a very strong provider of service related revenues. Anyway, rants for other days. So again, my best case scenario here, and I was hoping for more updates and headlines today that does outside that Vietnam conversation. Maybe we'll get it over the weekend, but we need something. Something's got to change. There's got to be signs that some of this is going to, or all of it's going to get rolled back. Not all of it, but to the extent that they are right now, I don't. It's not sustainable, right? I mean, we'll just keep going down. That's I, I mean, hard for me to rationalize it going any other way. But it's tough also to sit here and try and chase some of these high premium puts because it's just we're just one headline away from the puts getting destroyed. So uh, eh. All right. So that's the overall market. So, I talked about 540. We broke under that. Now 490 is the next spot here. So, I mean, I give that like a 75% probability we're there at some point. I don't know if it'll be next week, outside of updates, right? So if there's any kind of back and forth with the EU, back and forth with Asia, back and forth, especially with China. If some of that can get rectified, then maybe we have some bounces here. It's funny that like the economy was hitting almost on all cylinders. Unemployment was low. GDP was looking great. Uh, just good stuff. So typically, you want to see. Well, all right, enough of that rant. All right, so now let's individual names. So first I'll talk here about Netflix. Unfortunately, Netflix didn't do a duplicate of what it did yesterday. It was able to defy the overall market today. It just could never really get its footing. Start to show some bounces in the mid morning. I went and got some more spec calls. Those were up for a little bit, and then it just reversed back to lows. Still going to be a name I'm going to be watching because I think if there's a name that that strong, fundamentally sound company that I don't think is going to have too much in the way of hiccups, at least short term, it's Netflix. Not only that, don't forget, folks, earnings season next week starts. The banks on Friday. All right, so that's Netflix, and then GameStop. I mean, take a look at GameStop today. It's almost like a safe haven asset, and I I keep mulling over scenarios about what they can do and what the updates are going to be. But at some point, they're going to announce acquisition of a Bitcoin, right? It's going to happen. How much? The frequency, are they going to continue to just do convertible debt or offerings to continue to acquire? Is there going to be just a time frame? Is it going to be at a certain price? Are they going to use the cash that they have on hand, or just continue to hold that cash and let that collect interest and provide passive income? I kind of like that outcome first, right? Be a fundamentally sound company with tons of cash on hand that they have, and then use the existing debt that they're raising to buy the Bitcoin, right? So, needless to say, take a look at it today. Monster, it's up almost 12% here. And the other thing is, you look at Bitcoin, and it's like, if you had told me that the market when Nasdaq was hitting bear market territory, we'd have this big outsized move over a very short period of time. I would think Bitcoin would be like, especially on a day like today, Nasdaq's down 5%. You would think Bitcoin would have been 12, 13, 14%. That's how it used to trade. And now it's almost like it's reverse, right? It's almost like the rock. So, I was looking at gold again today, and you're like, gold is selling off, but great, great analogy or great some rationale is that gold has done great. It's it was up 20 something percent year to date. Some people might be using that asset as selling off to offset other positions or for margin call or whatever. So it's more gold might be selling more of a function of how well it's performed than because people want to sell it, right? So maybe that's some of the reason it's down here today. But I looked at it first. I said, hey, today could be the day the shift in sentiment between the store values between gold and Bitcoin. But either way, so I went and got those MSTR calls earlier today because I was looking. I'm like, it's not going to take much for this to get going. You see, it's holding up well. If the market reversed, I figure it's going to trade into the 300. It still might trade into 300. 34 minutes left here in the day. But I mean, take a look at GameStop. I almost wanted to get some more strikes here today, but I'll just hold what I have. It's almost going to hit $24 here. So that's that. That's GameStop. So at least that one's doing well here today. And then Wayfair. So, I had those calls last week, locked some in for some profits, held the rest of those expired. And then I continue to watch because here's a name I thought was somewhat unfairly sold off, or the sell-off was somewhat unwarranted based on the tariffs. And then we find out Wednesday that, Vietnam was going to get slapped with this huge tariff rate, although it's not a name that you would think that has this huge trade and tariffs on the U.S. I mean, again, they did the math to do these reciprocal tariffs. It's not really reciprocal tariffs, it's reciprocal trade deficits, right? So they took the trade deficit, divided by the trade, got the percentage, and that's the tariffs that was slapped on these countries. So, Vietnam, obviously they produce low costs, right? Low labor costs, low factory costs, all those regulatory costs. So very inexpensive to produce things there. And so unfortunately, Wayfair, which is pretty much just a dropship company, all the stuff that they procure from Southeast Asia. So when that news came out, I started seeing it spike, and it was like 21, 22. I'm like, I got to get some strikes. I was looking for the weeklies, and I went out, got the 30s. 2 minutes later, stock got halted. So I was like, please don't kill the momentum. Halts, to my opinion, only favor market makers, right? The people who make the market, it allows them some time to, to figure things out, how they can make sure they don't lose their butt on this gap, right? That's just my humble opinion. Typically, most times, it doesn't protect investors, in my opinion, unless it's like a bankruptcy file. Well, even then. So then I was able, it opened up, and I was able to close some out for 100%. And I look now, it's up to $26. If there's more resolution on the tariff side in regards to even just outside of what's going on in Vietnam, some other names in Asia, I mean, I can see Wayfair trading in the mid 30s next week or the week after. So after April 17th, again, markets close next in 2 Fridays for Good Friday. The 30 calls are up. Well, bid ask is a little weird, but nearly 300%. I'll continue to hold those. So thankfully, some calls are paying out today. And then Deck, right? So Deck's another name, just completely destroyed. Some of it was earnings, but the earnings weren't too bad. It's just that there were just signs of inventory levels, margins, and then obviously the tariff concerns is kind of like the straw that broke the camel's back. So then you watch today, the news came out and just reversed. I think it was under 90, 93 it hit, and then it just reversed all the way up to 108. I was looking for some opportunities to try and trade another name that might have some more upside as people look to maybe pile in an oversold name. So I got those Deck. Was the same shop? I think I was talking about Deck, but I got those Deck 110s. It almost got up to past 108 by about 2 o'clock, fade all the way back down to 105, and it's bouncing here. So still have some time, but it's going to need to move here quick. But another name I'll be watching next week for possible bounce opportunities. And also some others like so Dust, and I always talk about Dust as being kind of like this double hedge, right? Because if gold sells off and the market sells off, Dust goes up twice as quick. It's up 17% here today. The issue is the spreads and the liquidity, right? It's an option market. The calls are very hard to get. So I'll probably pass. The thing is, because if it starts to move quickly, it's gonna be hard to exit. So, but definitely another name I'll be watching next week. And then I also, where is that? Oh, and also when the markets were hitting lows earlier today, got those SQQ calls. Was able to close some out for near 100%. I still held the rest as a hedge. I was looking for positions in SQQ into next week, and like they only have strikes up to $63. They're like $1.80, $2. Um, if things do go parabolic, I mean, it could be 75, 80, 100. And then these 3-time and 2-time ETFs, they go nuts, especially the further we go down. Instead of moving in, 10 cents, 20 cents, they start moving 50 cents. Like, I mean, if you're around in 2008, there was some crazy you'd watch, and there'd be SKF would open at 110, and by 9 o'clock, by 9:45, it was $150, like crazy moves. So, and that's really with the underlying not moving as much, right? Moving about the same. It's just it gets to a point where it's just like it just sets these ETFs off. So I'll still watch that one, but for me, I'm like the risk reward. I just have to think there's going to be. I just picture POTUS reading articles and watching the news, which is what he does, and it just gets him to the point where, like, whether he reaches out to somebody, he has commissary, someone reach out to another country, and they work out some kind of deal, at least to get some footing in the market. So anyway, I think that's about it. Hopefully, Deck can get over 110 here at the end of the day. And today's it's one of those volatile days, right? Some of these days you sit around, the market moves in a 0.3% range, and premiums just erode. Today's the day that and hopefully we'll get some more opportunities where if we do get a bounce end of day, or a capitulation move where we have a sell off in the morning and then a bounce, can be some of the best trading days. The type of days that can make your month or year. And then hopefully you don't pee it away for the remainder of the year. But that's when you see me being a little more aggressive today, because that's you do this long enough, you've seen some of these days be really, really great days on both sides. So, all right, folks, have a great weekend. I'll be back rock and roll.